You're listening to Parasearch UK Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to The Spirit Dimension with your host, Kerry Greenaway, right here on Parasearch Radio.
Good evening. Welcome to the Spirit Dimension. Now tonight I have a very special show for you. I've actually got one of my very close friends in the studio with me. Her name is Nixie Vale. She is also known as the Ramblings of the Rainbow Witch. She is a rainbow witch in every sense of the word. She is very knowledgeable. She's a wordsmith as well and is well renowned for her writing. So let's welcome her to the studio. Good evening, Nixie. How are you this evening?
Good evening. I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. You're a little nervous, aren't you?
I am, yes. I will freely admit I've been very nervous all week. Very excited too, but still a little nervous.
I think that's fully understandable because you've been taken out of your comfort zone on so many different occasions in recent times, particularly pushing yourself further out in your writing work. And now, before we get into that, first of all, explain to me, why are you a rainbow witch?
I have a deep love and passion for colour and rainbows. And a few years ago, I started researching into colour psychology and how colours can affect your mood, how you think, and how you feel as a person. So even though you don't consciously realising you're doing it, the clothes you wear, the accessories, all of the colours are chosen subconsciously for what you need in that day. And I thought, right, how can I bring this into my own craft? And after a rather sarcastic comment in a friend's shop, it sort of all started to click together. And one day in December, it just went snap and it all fitted. So I took the rainbow thing further than I ever thought I would do. And now it's a part of every part of my life, from the jewellery I wear to my clothes, my accessories, even my hair. I have had multiple rainbows in my hair over the last few months especially, and it feels right. And I think that's what has helped me really start to understand my path as a witch, as a wordsmith, and the role I play in my own life as a woman. Because they're all me. They're not individual aspects. They're not individual little sections. They all interplay. And I think that's probably why now I'm the Rainbow Witch. If you'd asked me that question 5 years ago, it would have been primarily the sarcastic comment. It sounded cool. He had that alliteration play. But now that is why I'm the Rainbow Witch.
That's fantastic. There are so many different kinds of witches, and you've made your very own format of witch, haven't you?
I have, and I do get criticised for forging my own path. And recently on one of the articles I'd written, somebody had said I was diluting what it means to be a witch, where for me, I've taken the concept of being a witch, the concept of colour, and I have just combined them. For me, I'm not diluting it, I am refining it for me to fit my personality. I'm not trying to convert the world. I'm not saying my path is the right way. But for me, it is. It works. People may not understand it, and I get that. I don't understand techno witches because I'm not technologically minded. I can break anything that's technological if you give me long enough.
Same here.
But I respect that. That's their choice. That's how they practice. And that's all I've done. I've just taken what it means to be a witch, that sacredness that we all hold dear, and I know sacredness isn't a word, but we've taken that and I've refined it to where I'm comfortable, taking it to the places where I can still learn something new. I'm not constantly stuck in a place where I'm reliving old knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather push the boundaries on what I know and learn, then I can pass this knowledge, this learning, this understanding on to other people who thought, well, that's a different way to put it. I never thought of it like that. Because that's what I like to do. I like to take knowledge, understanding, and put my own little spin on it. And hopefully somebody can get something out of it. I don't tailor articles to one type of person. I don't limit it to newbies or to the veterans. I try and make it understandable for everybody. Because if it's not understandable for me, how is anybody else going to understand what it's about? And that's what I really try to do now. I try to take what I've learned and mix it with a bit of colour and then let it go out into the universe and take it to where it needs to go.
Well, you have a huge, huge following, so you must be doing something right.
I must be, and, well, I think I am, but then there's always the people who criticise and judge.
Yeah, but you get that in every field.
Yes, no matter what career you're in, whether it be nursing, retail, hospitality, or authorship, you will have people criticise you. And I always take those criticisms on board and I say, how can I use this to improve? You know, one of them was little spelling mistakes or, you know, little things like that. And I will hold my hands up and say, sometimes I do my posts on my phone and the brilliant creation that is autocorrect sometimes takes over and ends up, you know, completely contorting what I wanted to write. Sadly, I don't know how to turn autocorrect off. So I literally am stuck underneath the dictatorship, that is autocorrect.
Oh,
And
you have to love autocorrect. It comes out with some very random things at times. But your writing is taken a step forward recently. I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. You're writing for 2 different magazines at the moment, online magazines, aren't you?
I am, yes.
You're writing
I am. Carry on.
No, you tell me. Who are you writing for?
One of them is Magical Recipes Online, which has a massive following. And they have even offered me, once I've collected together enough articles and put them into some kind of order, because my articles follow where my brain goes, and there is no real cohesive order. Once I've done that, they've even offered to publish an ebook for me, and we would split the sales. And then obviously from there I can take that a little bit further and create a printed book.
Wow.
Yeah, people know that. That's something I haven't told even you. I don't think I've even told you.
No, that's a new tidbit for me.
I have been waiting since you said I was coming on the show. So I thought it would be a nice surprise.
It's fantastic news. I'm so proud of you, honey. I'm really, really proud. Now, if you remember going back to when we first met, I actually said to you, why are you not writing your own book, didn't I?
And I think I remember saying I have over 100 articles. I just can't get it into a cohesive format. One that flowed. Because there was constantly something pulling my attention here, pulling my attention there, and getting it into an order where it felt right has been really hard. I have, 10,000, 11,000 words written of the book. And since you mentioned it originally, and I just can't get the feel right. And if I can't feel a connection to the book, how can I expect anybody else to? So it's a very slow process, and it has been going on for the last few years. It's just finding... I personally think after the last few months especially, maybe it wasn't the right time to start writing it. Maybe I needed that little extra boost from working with Magical Recipes Online, with working with Spooky Isles, with you, with other pages and groups, that they've given me the confidence to finally find some cohesive way with maybe by having all these things in place, I'm going to be able to find my way through the book, be able to do it justice, rather than just slapping something together that I don't believe in and hope it does well. I would rather write something meaningful for everybody, and that will actually help people, and not just because of money.
Yeah.
Which isn't me. I'm not driven by monetary gain. I'm doing it for, 1, the love of writing, 2, the love of my own craft, and 3, because you're right, I have so much knowledge to share, and the universe gave me that knowledge and the gift for a reason. Now I just have to take it forward and actually do something with it, and not just sit on my hands and post on Facebook. Yeah.
I mean, the universe gives you these opportunities, but it's up to you how you manifest that into reality, isn't it? And actually take that opportunity and going forward. And it's very easy to have the opportunity, but sometimes very difficult to see how that works for yourself, but know it's right for yourself as well.
Knowing that, having the confidence to take that opportunity, I think, is the hardest part. I've worked with magical recipes online through Ramblings of a Rainbow Witch for the last four years. So they're people I know. I may not know them as well as I know you, but I know them well enough to... They're on... Even though it's way, way, way out of anywhere I've ever been, they're still close enough to my comfort zone to know that they're not going to do anything bad.
Yeah.
They're not going to do anything bad with my articles. They're not going to be mean. They've been absolutely wonderful. They love how I write and what I write, which is amazing because they're fans of my work. And then they have me saying, well, I'm massive fans of your work. So one day I just took the chance and I did it.
And I am so proud of you for doing that, because it is, like you said, a huge step out of your normal comfort zone. And it's putting that head above the parapet and actually pushing yourself to a wider audience. And it's scary. It can be very, very scary. Now, I want to take you right back to the very, very beginning, on your witchy path. Where did you first start getting into witchy ways, into the way of the witch, should I say?
I was about 11 years old, and my granddad was really poorly, and he sadly was transitioning into his next life, and I wasn't getting the answers I needed. So I went looking for those answers myself. And I'd always felt more connected to ancient mythologies than I had my Christian roots. So I started looking at the Greek gods and my Germanic heritage with Norse mythology to find some understanding of what was happening, because nothing was fitting, and I finally found comfort in a way with Greek mythology, and it's having the Elysian Fields and finding comfort in Valhalla. Those things helped me through that really hard time. And 15, 16 months later, after he passed away, my nan passed away. And so it was a really hard time, those 2 years between 11 and 13, that I had a lot of questions but no answers. And that's what led me into paganism. And after that, I started, searching on the internet at school. And then I found out about Wicca. So I had a little look into that. But after doing some research, it didn't feel right, because it was too rigid. It was too set. And that didn't feel like it was me. I've always been that I'm a Pisces Aquarian cusp, so I'm a water baby through and through. So constraints like that, they don't suit me and how I am as a person. So I left Wicca behind, used it as a foundation into other pagan belief systems, and pretty much it started from there.
Wow, so you took quite a journey before you hit the pathway that you're on now.
I have, yes. And I found friends at school who were interested in the same thing. So I even had people I could talk to back then. I've always been so lucky. I've never been in the broom closet. I've always had my family support, my friends' support. I've never had to hide who I am. Even when people have asked me to, I've said no, I won't completely hide who I am, because I've never had to. So, and then into my 20s, I started getting more confident when I started to find online forums and Facebook and things like that, because it opened up the world.
Yeah.
Bigger than I could have imagined to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met some of my friends, and it's just gone so fast since I was 24. So the last 6 years have gone so fast in terms of how my path has progressed, how it's picked up, how it's changed, that it's felt like a roller coaster. I have questioned it, whether I'm doing the right thing, but then I have the little devil and angel, the proverbial devil and angel, and then I have my own inner being that says, yes, this is right. You're doing the right thing, even though I have the naysayers talking around me saying, you're not doing that right. You should be doing this. You should be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm partially deaf, so sometimes when people start doing that, I just switch my hearing aids off.
It's always a good thing to do.
So I can't hear what people are telling me. You know, when they tell me I should be this way or that way, it's like, nope, I am not listening to that, because I changed who I was for somebody before, and I vowed to myself I would never do that again, whether it be in my craft or my personal life. I won't have people deciding things for me anymore. If I am to go take my path way out of the way, you know, in a completely different direction from my rainbow witch, then that would be my choice. I want that to be my choice.
Yes.
And I don't want somebody prodding me in a direction that the universe hasn't intended for me to go.
Mm-hmm.
I do listen to the universe 99% of the time. Sometimes I'm just, no. It's just, no. It's not possible. Because you sit there thinking about something and it pops into your head and you think, why did that just pop into my head? What is the universe trying to tell me? No. I'm sorry, universe, but no.
That we've all done a little bit of that in our time. Now, we have had a question in the chat room. So good evening, Akila. Thank you for joining us. Now, the first comment that Akila made was, there's no right or wrong in the craft so long as you're happy, and that is all that matters. And then she goes on to ask, do you have a set pantheon or are you eclectic?
Actually, I'm neither. I'm pantheist. I don't believe anymore in a set pantheon. I believe that we are all divine in our own right. Everything in this universe, in its own right, is divine. We are different aspects of a great divine. So the little flies that my cat is chasing outside, they are divine. They are still part of the divine. I am, you are, everybody is just a small aspect of the divine. A greater understanding, a greater universal consciousness, so to speak. Yes, I do work with pantheons occasionally, especially with my familiars and my cats. I work with Bastet a lot. And if I'm working with memorials at Samhain, I will go for Hades or Hela or Anubis something to do with those. I can tap into, or I like to tap into, what those divinities represent, the energy that they represent, rather than limiting my own mind to one strict concept that means love, where she's more than that. Or Athena being the goddess of wisdom, and they are greater than that. For me, anyway, everybody, there is, you're right, there is no right or wrong. But about 2 or 3 years ago, I started feeling a disconnection to pantheons, and I started feeling that my path was a little different. It was looking at the kind of energy that each deity represents and using that kind of energy and how I can bring that energy into my personal work without having to say, oh, I follow Osiris or Odin. I would rather tap into the energy that Odin or Osiris represent, how the ancients saw those deities rather than an actual pantheon.
Mm-hmm. So basically you are using the energy of each representation in your work, and it's just because it's got a name, you look at the whole embodiment of that energy rather than a specific aspect of that god or goddess.
Yes.
So do you work intuitively?
Yes, very much so. Sometimes I will have a clear indication in my mind of how I want things to work. 99.9% of the time, it does not work that way. But if I find if I don't have a platform to build from, I end up floating aimlessly around a little. So I try to have a base, then from there intuitively.
So that means not necessarily what the books write as to who you should work with at a specific time. You will go with what your gut is telling you to work with at that time.
Yes, and that's come from 19 years worth of not following, so long of not following instinct versus following my instincts.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I think your instincts will always guide you to where you need to be. So if you're needed to follow a certain goddess for a little while, then you'll be guided to that one way or another. But I just don't feel like limiting myself to a strict vision in my head helps my practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. Working with crystals, I work in a very similar way. I'll go with how, what intuitively I'm drawn to at that specific time regarding that energy. And not everybody may agree with my choices for that particular festival or that particular grid intention. But because it feels right for me, then that's what works with my energy to put that manifestation or that intention out there. So it is more of an intuitive way of working.
When you read a book about crystals, you can be caught into, like tarot, you can be caught into thinking a certain way. And you can be thinking that the devil or the death card is a certain meaning, where if you get in touch with your intuition and feel the card, you may pick up something vastly different. And I think that's possibly the biggest thing I've learned since starting my path, that I have to listen to my own intuition more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what's led me where I am today.
And it is quite scary when you're in the public eye, as it were, and you have a lot of followers. If you're not necessarily following a traditional god or goddess or crystal for intention work, and then you put that out there, that's what you've chosen to work with at that time, it can be quite scary because you're not following a traditional path, as it were.
No, I've always put on my page that this is what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
It may not agree with somebody else, it may not feel right. Somebody who may be very by the book, which is a fantastic path as well, may think, well, she's moving away from the books, she's moving away from what it says, what Cunningham have said, or what Buckland has said. But I've got enough confidence in my own path to put that out there, like you have with your crystals. If you didn't have the confidence, you wouldn't put yourself out there and say those things, or you wouldn't choose those crystals.
Mm-hmm. It's so true.
Otherwise, because you know that you're pushing your own opinions out there, and there's, pardon me, not everybody is going to agree with your opinion on crystals or meanings of cards or this or that or colour, and it can be quite hard, especially now I've got a bigger following, that not everybody's agreeing with what I'm writing, but that's helping me learn about other people, other paths, other ways of thinking. It's challenging me, and I do like a challenge sometimes. Then there are sometimes I don't.
I think that goes the same for all of us. Now we need to just take a little quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking all about familiars and various ways of working rituals. So bear with us, and we'll be right back after this.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?
Welcome back to the Spirit Dimension Show. I am joined in the studio by the fabulous Nixie Vale, who is the Rainbow Witch. Welcome back, Nixie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here again.
Now, we were talking about how you work and how it's very intuitive and how you don't necessarily follow the doctrine of set pantheons and stuff like that before. Now, it's one thing I have noticed about you on your page is you work very closely with familiars.
I do. I spent 15 years with a familiar I didn't know was my familiar until she was transitioning from this life into her next life. And it was the anniversary of her passing 3 days ago. So it's something that since her I've tried to make up for the 15 years I wasn't aware that she was my familiar. And last year she guided Phoenix to me, who is my current familiar, who is a very special kitty in every sense of the word. And I promised Cleo that I wouldn't ignore anything that she told me. You know, I promised her I would, if I found another familiar, I would listen a little more to that connection, and I work every day to keep that promise to her. And I work very closely with Phoenix, who quite often comes in the morning and is a typical little kitty and tries to eat everybody's toes. and I think I'm not going to tell you off as much as I would like to, because you're probably just showing me a little bit of love. Even though you want to, I love them. Does she listen? Of course not. She's a cat.
Exactly.
But, yeah, I do try to work more with familiars, and it was something that after Cleo, I started researching more, because I thought I knew a lot, but in fact, I didn't know hardly anything. And that's when I started colouring books, and there's a set of colouring books, and I started to work through each page, and each animal, I would research that animal and connect to that animal's energy, or as much as I could. Some animals are easier than others.
Mm-hmm.
One I had, two I had a particular affinity to was an Indian elephant and a rhinoceros. So while I was working with those energies, I felt that connection to the what's the word I'm looking for? A cosmic animality.
Mm-hmm.
That the energies that those animals represent. And I've done this for cats, dogs, fish. Fish are always really interesting because I'm a water element. There's always a strong affinity to fish, even though as food, I don't like fish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're slippery and slimy and bleh, but their energy is completely different. It's like a summer rain or a shower at that perfect temperature. It just feels right sometimes. Other times when my Aquarian nature's taking over, I feel more a connection to birds. And being a cusp baby, it can make things a whole lot of complex because I need to bring those two different aspects of myself together to connect with an animal, to connect with my familiars, to work with totems, to work with the animal kingdom as a whole. And I think that's, along with colour, that's probably one of the bigger subject matters that I've thrown myself into in recent history, in the last 2 years especially. And I sit some days and I will see Cleo run or walk past me and out the door. Even though she isn't here with me, she's still watching over me. She's still teaching Phoenix how to be a familiar and how not to get so distracted when I am working with her. And Phoenix is making really good progress. She's only a year old, so she's still very young. Where Cleo would sit, or even Tazzy, one of my other cats that I lost last year, they would sit and let me work with them. They would let me arrange crystals over them because they'd outgrown that impulsive-ness that some cats have. And Phoenix hasn't got there yet. She's still a little young, shall we say,
Mm-hmm.
to sit sedately for more than 10 seconds at a time without sleep. She has two states of being: hyperactive nutcase, or so asleep she looks dead. There is no middle ground. There is literally no way of knowing which one she's going to be at any moment of the day, because she could be laying fast asleep on my bed literally in the next breath, she is bolting out the door like she's got the hounds of hell after her.
How do you find that works in regards to when you're doing your ritual work, when you're doing your celebrations and your stuff like that? Is that incredibly difficult working with such a young familiar?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. The amount of time she has been running around and everything has just come off with her. Or I used to have 4 altars set up all the time. Things used to change on them, but I would have 4 set up at all times. I've had to put my altar to my familiars and my cats with my statue of Bastet on a shelf that's quite high. And I have 1 altar, and it is set up for the Sabbath or any work. Other than that, it is a wooden chest. Because she will quite happily try and climb the walls to get a daddy long leg from the ceiling.
Yeah.
She thinks she can do it. And with the length of her back legs and the power she has in them, give her another 2 years and she probably can't reach the ceiling. But I don't leave anything around that can get broken. Because I don't know if you remember Samson, my lion, that I got from you. She went whip it around the room and he lost a leg.
Oh, no. This was a little Dolomite lion carving that Nixie bought from me for a specific working that she was doing at that particular time. He's lost a leg. I can't believe that. I'm going to have words with your cat when I meet her.
And it was just like, okay, maybe Samson wanted to be a 3-legged lion? I highly doubt it, Phoenix. But I'm assuming he wanted to be a 3-legged lion. So he is now sitting with Bastet, and hopefully she is soothing him.
Hopefully. I love that.
It goes, all my crystals, they have to be up out of the way because she will knock them over.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Has tried to climb shelves where all my crystals are, and that's when you see us doing our Usain Bolt impressions and flying across the room.
Yeah.
And you know me. Can you imagine me flying around like Usain Bolt?
You have to save your tools, though, don't you? To be fair, I'm exactly the same when I'm in my crystal room. And as you know, I lost my cat last year, but when he was in there, it was like, no, get out. You're not allowed in here. It was one place he wasn't ever allowed to go, but I'd still find him curled up around a quartz or something. They're quite drawn to crystals, aren't they, animals?
Cleo, when I would put mine outside, I have a video on my profile, and I was doing a video on YouTube, or on Facebook, should I say, for my crystals, just to show how crystals prefer sunlight to artificial light. And I was saying goodbye in the video, and she attacked me. She was sat on the little table I had all my crystals on, and she attacked me. I'm like, okay.
Maybe you weren't supposed to say goodbye at that point. Maybe she wanted you to continue.
Who
knows?
With her, you never know. She was a bit of a feisty little girl. But I'd found when I had crystals here or there, I would find her curled up around them or near them. Or though one day I was just sorting some of my crystals out, and she jumped up onto my bed, the corner of my bed, which threw a quartz point onto my phone and smashed the screen. Phones and crystals.
I would be having serious words.
They don't fix. And the air was blue.
Oh, I bet it was.
I took this as a lesson. And now, whenever I'm working with my crystals, my phone is the other side of the room. Because I don't want to have to go through the same thing again. Because
no, we definitely don't.
It probably would happen.
Now, we've just hit summer solstice. We've just come out the other side of it. How did you actually work with that energy? Because it was quite an intense energy this year.
It was, but for me, the summer solstice is no longer about the energy of the sun, because I lost Cleo 2 years ago on the summer solstice. And for me now, that is my time to connect to her and to connect to well, in a way, it's about the energy, because she left me at a time I had just gotten my dream job of 2 years ago as a teaching assistant. And I felt that, well, after a while, it was like, she was with me when I really needed her. You know, she got me through, she got me the job, and then she passed on. But now I connect to the solar energy and with her. She helps keep me very grounded still. Even though Phoenix is my familiar, because she is so young, her energy is very intense. She can be a handful, and when energy is intense, like it was on the solstice, I think I didn't sleep very well, and I never do when things get very energetic. And trying to explain how it feels to somebody is really difficult, but it felt like, you know, when you touch a battery to your tongue, it was that little spark. It was like feeling that all over my skin and seeing little sparks, because I've mentioned this with you before, that, or you did, I'm an empath, but I don't feel what people feel. I can see it in their aura. And I could see like energy sparking off people's auras because it was so strong. It was like the auras were trying so hard to protect them from so much strong energy. And this is probably where my brain is going to go and do, pardon me, a little research about how solar energy can interact with the aura's energy and how they interplay together.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the summer solstice is always going to be about a memorial for Cleo, and with the summer solstice energy. And I worked with golden calcite. I gave Kerry some calcite spheres a few weeks ago.
And they're amazing.
And the couple I have for myself, I worked with those, because, which is initially why I was so drawn to them, was to use them in my solstice work. And on my Facebook, you'll see how colourful my altar is, but you'll see, or I can see it at least, that the calcites just seem to lift off the screen a little, because their energy has just been so sublime the last week and a half that I couldn't not work with them. And they're very tactile stones. I love them.
They're beautiful. The spheres you gave me are absolutely awesome, and I'm very, very grateful. So thank you so much for those, because they are beautiful.
When I saw them, I was like, right, I'm having those. And the first thing that came to mind was, I'm not going to need all 8. Kerry can have 4.
And I definitely needed the energy of those 4 spheres. I've done a meditation with those 4 spheres. As you know, there's some work I need to do, and they are definitely using their energy to help clear that. Now, just going back just a little bit more to the solstice, after the solstice, the day after, there felt a real renewal, a real refresh, and like we'd shed a lot of issues and a lot of things that had gone before, and it felt very like a step forward into the new world. A scary step, but it felt like we was able to, I say we as in people, were able to step forward into a way forward without that baggage, I suppose. Is
felt
that
like
how you felt?
breathe. It felt like I could breathe for the first time in a little while. Like the weight had been lifted. Sadly, the heat hadn't, so it was still very hot and very sticky and miserable. Because I don't know if it's rained down where you are, but it has barely rained where I am. And so even though the weather was still like that, it still felt like I could breathe for the first time in perhaps a month. I didn't feel like I was being crushed by energy, which it sounds really silly when I say it aloud, but it was the best way that I could put it into words for you. Was it felt like I could breathe, that I'd had, you know how after you have a really bad cold and the first day you can breathe properly because there isn't that pressure building inside your head. That's what it felt, for me at least.
Yeah. Oh no, I felt that. I felt that energy shift definitely just after the solstice. It was quite an incredible difference from pre to after. So it was good. Now you don't just use crystals, you use essential oils, you use herbs, don't you? You use so many different tools in your workings. Can you talk me through some of your favourites?
Crystals by a large gap. I've used herbs, I've used flowers, especially from my garden. I have a glorious white rose bush from my granddad, and because it is such a beautiful pure white, they're usually all involved. Lavender, I love lavender.
Do you love it? Do you love it, Nix?
Just a little bit. I'm not keen on, the synthetic lavender scents that you can get. I love real lavender. I love the scent of it. And so I work with lavender, sage, obviously, rosemary too.
Yeah.
And I use those, again, going to the representative energies of what those herbs, flowers represent, rather than their traditional meaning. My nightmare pouch that I make has rosemary in, but it also has, thyme. You wouldn't necessarily fix thyme with nightmares, but for me it works. I don't use amethyst so much anymore. I use selenite because it seems, especially at the moment, I benefit more from selenite than I do amethyst. So I try and bring as many aspects as I can into my craft, but sometimes I found a crystal will do it all.
Yeah.
Or a herb will do it all. Sometimes I don't need all of them. Like I haven't taken the solstice altar down, but I have drying flowers from my garden. I have a calla lily. I have roses. I have cowslip. I have cornflower. Because there are other flowers in my garden, but I was guided by intuition, my instinct, to choose those. Whether they work for anybody else, they probably wouldn't, but for what I was needing at the time, a lot of pure energy, a lot of uncontaminated energy from the white calla lilies, from the white roses, to bring me back to a point where I could concentrate, where the energy of the roses and the colours, they pushed a lot of energy away from me, so I could do the work I needed to do. And I found that with herbs, sometimes it's not necessarily what they traditionally represent, but it's what they're doing for me at that particular time.
Yeah. So if you had one piece of advice to somebody starting on the witch pathway, I suppose you would call it, what advice would you give them?
Take all advice with a pinch of salt. Ask questions, get answers, then question those answers. Don't take every answer as gospel truth, because it isn't. There is no one perfect truth out there. It is all micro truth. So if you get an answer, great, but that answer may not be the only answer out there. Question everything that you learn, because that's how you grow as a witch.
I totally agree with that. And I also think that you should follow your intuition and go where you're guided from your inside, because it's your energy signature that's working, not somebody else's. And you can follow what, rituals or spell work you like, but if it doesn't fit you and your energy signature, then it's not really going to work the right way for you.
No, it just won't work. If I had listened to advice I had been given when I was a teenager, I wouldn't have been as confident a witch. I wouldn't have learned what I've learned in 10 years. I'm not the same person, so as a person I've grown, as a witch I've grown, because I've not stayed the same.
You've evolved.
I have, into a very, very colourful person.
That is very, very true. Do you think your evolution has finished, or do you think you're still going to continue that evolution?
I think I will still evolve up to the point where I don't need to evolve anymore. That could be 2 years, that could be 20, 30, 40 years. I will carry on going for as long as I'm guided to.
That's great. I think that as well. I think you're always evolving and you're always changing and you're always learning, and that brings different ways of, working into your intention work. And so what's the most powerful working or ritual you've done?
I was a part of a ritual when I was a teenager, very misguided, but a God form assumption, where you invite the energy of a deity directly into your body to communicate, a bit like channeling or a Ouija board, but you are using yourself as the tool.
Okay.
I would not recommend it. It is not something for teenagers or the faint of heart.
Did that cause you any form of trauma working that way?
It did for a long time, because I was unprepared for what I saw. But after a while, I used it as a learning tool, and I started to connect to that kind of ritual again, and learn there are better ways to do it than just going for the scariest thing you can find in a book. Because
well, believe it or not, darling, we have come to the end of the hour. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your journey with us tonight.
It's been an honour. It really has.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. See, I told you it wasn't going to be that bad.
You did, and I was more excited than nervous, but cat and a hot tin roof comes to mind. But I was starting to get very nervous.
Well, thank you once again for joining me tonight on the Spirit Dimension. Now, next week, we've actually got a special interview for you. We have got John Kaneko James coming on. Myself and Andy Mercer will be interviewing him. Now, John Kaneko James is a tour guide at the Globe Theatre in London, but also a prolific folklorist writer, and he is just astonishing and can talk for England. So I don't think me and Andy Mercer are actually going to get a word in edgeways. And if you know both of us, we kind of like to say our piece too. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. There are shows going out every night of the week, as always. If you can't catch up with us on Spreaker, we are on YouTube as well. So please subscribe to our channel. It will show when a new show is uploaded, send you that information. But for now, thank you for joining me, and I bid you all a very farewell.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.